Civilized to Death by Christopher Ryan, The Cost of Progress. For the longest time, civilization's proud mantra has been progress at any cost. But the more progress that we see, the more unnatural our lives have become. We have built a zoo for ourselves and locked ourselves in and thrown away the key. Hi, I'm Björn and welcome to the BookLab, the place where we bring you the best book recommendations and tips on how to become a lifelong learner. And in Christopher Ryan's new book, he talks about civilization going astray. And in order to find our way back on the true path, we have to look back to our ancestors, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, when we figure out and design how we can create a civilization where humans can thrive. Quote, "Could it be that the fiercely held belief in progress is sort of a painkiller, a faith in a future antidote to a present too terrible to contemplate? The progress that defines our age often seems closer to the progression of a disease than its cure." Well, I'm also a skeptic of the success of civilization, but this book is stupid at times. I mean, there's not many people that argue that life for humans are better now than it was 10,000 years ago. When we talk about things becoming better, we compare to the Middle Ages, to the Industrial Era. But there's kind of a consensus that agriculture might have been a huge mistake, at least if you look at success in the measure of human psychological well-being. But can we really turn back the clock right now? Then that would be to suggest genocide on a planetary scale, and I don't think that's a viable solution, really. The main complaint I have with this book is the tone. It feels like an old man complaining, right? And not suggesting that many practical moves that humanity can take in order to move forward in a better way. When we look back at history, it becomes obvious that in-group and community has been super important throughout our prehistoric life, and most likely it's the same case today. But there's a lot of forces within civilization that tears on those bonds. We have political polarization, something that's very big today. We are much more mobile these days, and we move away from our place of origin out in the world in order to find work and whatnot. We also replace the connections to the people that are close to us geographically with more distant online connections. These connections are not bad per se, but I guess time will tell if they are as important and as strong and as long-lasting as those more traditional bonds that we had with our local group. I think that one of the challenges when it comes to improving human well-being and create a civilization that is tolerable to live in is to answer this question. How do we create strong communities? And that's my takeaway from this book and how I plan to implement it. I just moved to a new area, and where I live, it's not a given that you actually know your neighbors, maybe not even their names. And one thing that I noticed that when I moved here was that the community feeling was so-so. Actually, it kind of sucked. That was my impression. But instead of complaining about it, I decided to go out there and actually get to know my neighbors. Not only their names, but like where they're from, what's their history. And in that way, instead of complaining, actually trying to do something about that problem. And that's my main takeaway from this book. Christopher Ryan's criticism of civilization fails to deliver, unfortunately, but don't worry, I will provide some recommendations of similar books that don't make you disappointed and is worth your time. I think the high point of this book is the bold title, Civilized to Death, The Price of Progress. It's a great title, it's a great cover, but that's it. It's a shallow book, it's sometimes contradictory in its information, and I sometimes feel like it's a little bit patronizing. But even if the book doesn't deliver, there is a problem with civilization and it's worth reading about it. Maybe you have that yawing feeling in the back of your head that something is off with the way we live. Then I will recommend two other books that you should pick up instead. And first out, I forgot to bring that book, but it's Straw Dogs, Thoughts on Humans and Other Animals by John Gray. This book It's not. It's a book that will keep you up at night. It's thought-provoking. It talks about humans. We're just other animals, and that could be a quite hard pill to swallow. A hard pill to swallow. But it's definitely worth your time. It's an uncomfortable read because it will make you feel less significant than you want to feel. It's a brutal criticism of liberal humanism, and it's worth your time. I'll provide links to all the books I mentioned in the description, so if you want to see the review, check it out. And while you're down there, press the subscribe button, like, and share this channel so I can reach more people with great books. That would be awesome. I think people should read more books. And secondly, we have The Comfort Crisis by Michael Eastern. This book is super practical, it's very accessible, and it talks about having this very comfortable lives that we have these days is actually detrimental to our physical and mental well-being. It's sometimes good to try to experience some of the discomforts that our prehistoric ancestors faced every day. And this book has practical tips for how you can reintroduce those discomforts into your life, the benefits that you get for them. Some of the benefits are quite surprising, and I have a extended review available. I post a link in the description below. Check this book out. This was one of my favorite books from last year. It's a really cool one. Embrace discomfort to reclaim your wild, happy, and healthy self. So those are two books that talk about the trouble of civilization, and I would like to know in the comments if you have any book tips on books that talk about the trouble of civilization and why man is so discontent in it. I'm back next week with more book reviews. I had a break for a week for the first time. I won't let it happen again because talking about books, that's what I want to do. So anyway, I'm babbling. See you next week on Thursday. Björn out.